Hello, very warm good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and a happy Mid-Autumn Festival. Today's the Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival and the full moon, where they have these little moon cakes, if you know about that. But yeah, so thank you for coming on your Saturday morning or evening. And seems we are getting less and less, but that's very normal. The kind of pilgrims who are at the end of the journey. The pilgrims going up the mountain, more and more pilgrims kind of drop off along the way. And so congratulations for making it this far. And I'm sure there's also a few other people who are watching this recorded who are in those pilgrims as well. But yeah, so we will get started with a short meditation, about 10 minutes, and then we'll go into talking about Vipassana and daily life, how we can actually use this practice in our day-to-day life, how to practice moving forward, both on the cushion in formal meditation as well as off the cushion in our everyday life, in our activities, in our conversations, etc. So first find your position, your seated posture that you want to and can meditate in. And immediately taking refuge inside your body, inside the sensations of your body. Just seeing how quickly you can come to simplicity. How quickly you can allow yourself to do nothing. Feeling your body as a whole, as a cloud of sensory information that's coming in without anything extra. Letting go of any struggling, any battling, any fighting against experience. And just breathing quietly, letting it be. Letting your body relax and letting your heart soften. open to whatever you are experiencing without fighting it. There's no need to create, maintain, change anything. We don't even have to create mindfulness. Just let everything be. Feeling that this very moment is an excellent moment. This moment right now is a moment of freedom. Already perfect as it is. Allowing the different sensations in the body to be noticed. Noticing that whatever is prominent quickly changes. So you might be noticing your face, next instance noticing your hand touching the leg, next instant noticing the knee, the finger, the tongue. In this present moment, what appears to you is constantly changing. And next, I invite you to continue to maintain an awareness of your body even as you open up the eyes. So gently opening up the eyes and continuing to maintain this awareness of your body. Noticing that you can continue to be aware of the body even as you have your eyes open. Your body and the sensations of your body are a little bit of a refuge for you. Whenever you feel too far pulled away with your attention, you can just always come back to the body. The body is always here for you. Okay. So, a question for you. What has been your key learning or key takeaway so far? Just one phrase, maybe, of something that has stuck with you. Anything. Increase expectations. What? What do you mean increased expectations? Okay. To come back to the breath, to the body. Bella, I mean from the past 8 days of meditating, from the start of this course, what's something that you've learned, whether it's from your own meditations, from the lectures, something that maybe comes back to you throughout your day? Finding it easier to be peaceful. Okay. I learned that I have the capacity to calm down within myself without anything external. Wonderful. Bella likes to say, I'm here, to remind myself I am in the present moment. That is beautiful. I like this. To just recognize I am here and it is now, because it is always now and it is always here. We just, whenever we get lost in thought about future, past, something we have to do, something we're planning, something we're imagining, it's really like our being gets teleported to a place which is not here and a time which is not now. But really that is a thought which is happening right here, right now. So just to recognize it is here, it is now, it is always here, it is always now, can just instantly dissolve that illusion, and we come back to the reality of what is happening, which is we're thinking. Thank you for sharing that, Bella. Finding a way of being more in my body, less in mind and the balance. Yeah, finding that it's important not to reject our minds. It's very common these days for people to say no mind, or I like when there's no mind present or something. But yeah, there's definitely states where we go into where there's not much mind or thoughts happening, but ultimately mind and body are part of our reality. Thoughts are part of our nature. So it's nice to be able to find that balance between mind and body. Okay, moving on. So mindfulness helps us gain experience. So as you've been paying attention this week to your body, and maybe throughout your day to your body and to what's happening, some of you cited you were more aware. We start to learn. We learn how this whole thing works. We learn what brings us happiness, what brings us suffering. We start paying attention more to I actually noticing that I have thoughts going on. When I have thoughts going on, I tend to not be here now. So we start to gain experience into seeing reality as it really is. Reality is always manifesting in the present moment, but we like to get dragged off into kind of fantasies, assumptions about reality, delusions, we could all kind of dreams. And by continuing to practice mindfulness, you are recognizing the true reality as it's being experienced right now. We see both the good of ourselves, we see the qualities that we like in ourselves, and we see when we're more concentrated, more mindful, more calm, less judgmental, more compassionate. We also see the bad sides of ourselves. We see when we're being judgmental, we see when we tend towards anger, irritation, craving, when we think more selfish thoughts. And we are seeing the nature of ourselves. We need to accept both what we think is good and what we think is bad. This is part of who we are. Just like we need to accept the fact that we think. It's part of our nature. We see happiness. We see when we feel happy, when something nice happened, when we succeed. We see suffering. We see when we get upset. We see when things bother us. We see when we're restless, irritated, angry, bored. And the more we see this, the more we experience and pay attention to what's happening and how everything is constantly being created. We realize that 100% of our suffering, 100% of our experience is created by us. The conditions that we set for ourselves either set us up for happiness or set us up for suffering. If I have very high expectations and very judgmental and harsh, I'm setting myself up for suffering. If I have very low expectations, very kind to myself and attentive, patient, I'm setting up myself for happiness. So more and more, maybe we start to realize, maybe first when we never meditate, never had any practice before, we always blame the outside world. This so-and-so did this, that's why he's annoying. It's too hot in this room, that's why it's annoying. This and this happened, I'm upset. And we always we blame the outside world. But more and more we realize that we can take full ownership for our own suffering, and more we move towards a place where we realize that 100% of our suffering is created by us. Even if bad things happen to us, the fact that we suffer from them is a choice that we have. But step by step, over time, we realize this. So what I propose is there's kind of these 3 levels of happiness. The first level of happiness is happiness from sensual pleasures. So things like enjoying your food, watching a nice TV show, being with friends, enjoying sex, these kinds of pleasures which are very pleasures of the body, pleasures of the mind, and kind of entertainment. But these things don't last very long, as you've noticed. So maybe a few hours later, or once the meal is over, that pleasure is over. And that's fine. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have those pleasures, but we should just recognize their nature. We should recognize that these pleasures are transient and not cling to them. Second type of happiness is happiness which is a bit more longer lasting. It's kind of a happiness that we feel from being peaceful. Maybe you experience this when you go for a nice walk, or you go into nature, or maybe you went to some retreat or something like this, and you start to feel more peaceful, maybe after doing yoga, and you feel, this peace is a little bit more longer lasting. It's not as intense as these sensual pleasures, not as intense as this kind of dopamine hit, but it feels quite more relaxed, and there's a contentment and an openness to life which occurs. But as you probably also noticed, these experiences also pass, and they come and go. And maybe then we go back to work or something, and we start to feel more upset a few days later. And that's fine also. We can totally enjoy peace and just being aware of the nature of peace, that peace also comes and goes. Then the kind of third level of happiness is happiness from wisdom. So what I mean by that, it's kind of the wisdom that arises from Vipassana meditation, the wisdom that things change, the awareness that things are constantly changing. And the more I push away or reject the fact that things are changing, the more I personalize, the more I grasp after sensual pleasures, the more I crave sensual pleasures that aren't here, the more I crave peace when I don't have peace. The more I suffer. And the more we kind of see this process constantly happening and see ourselves falling into this trap over and over again, the less we start to fall into that trap, the more freedom we have. And while this wisdom isn't kind of as intense as a sensual pleasure, it starts to give us a lot more freedom. Freedom from actually having to be happy all the time. So we are free when we are happy, we are free when we are suffering, we are free when something pleasant is happening, free when something unpleasant is happening. And so it's kind of the most long-term project, but in my opinion, a very rewarding one that we can continually work on every day. It doesn't mean 100% of our time has to be devoted, but we can still enjoy the first two levels of pleasure. But it's a nice long-term thing to work towards. And my own experience, meditation has definitely, or Vipassana meditation specifically, has helped me more and more become freer from needing to be happy, and through that freedom actually feeling happy. So another question. When I feel discomfort or unpleasant, I usually tend to distract myself and try to do something else. And you can rate that from 1 to 5. So write A4, for example. Or I incessantly ruminate, worry, or overthink. You can also rate that 1 to 5. So for example, you would write A3, B5 or something like this. Can you notice your tendency as a B, as a person? There's A4, B4. Annabelle is slightly more on the distraction side, but still tends to overthink. Adrian, not so much a distractor, but does overthink sometimes. Distractor, someone who's a very much overthinker, not so much distracting themselves. Someone who is definitely a distractor, but not so much an overthinker. I would probably put myself on more of a distracting type than overthinking. Usually the overthinking stops when I distract myself. But yeah. Okay, great. So, and Wendy is a little bit more distracting, but not much overthinking. Nice. Okay. So these tend to be the two ways that the mind, if we don't kind of have any awareness of how we behave or haven't done any practices or etc. And this is how the mind tends to deal with things that it's unpleasant with. It tends to either like, oh my God, this thing is happening, let's go do something else. Let's go eat some food or watch something or go movies or go with our friends or maybe be really productive because then I feel better about myself, something like this. Or we take it very personal, whatever issue is happening, and start to really overthink it, worry, ruminate, take it super personally, and kind of spin in different thought cycles. And that's okay, that is the nature. But we always have options. And the more we practice the mindfulness, the more we realize we have the choice in each moment. So let's say something unwanted happens. For example, you, that's a nice example. What happened this morning to me? This morning, I accidentally had too much tea to drink and I felt very over caffeinated and very anxious. I don't drink caffeine very much. So, okay, maybe that's not such a good example. But we always kind of have different options of how we deal with the things. The first one is to just walk away, to go and do something else. And that's a perfectly valid option. Maybe I would have gone for a walk or something just to clear my mind. I don't need to deal with this. I can just go for a walk and kind of distract myself a little bit, create more space. And that's fine. The second option we have is kind of more this positive thinking, positive psychology, maybe doing some psychotherapy on ourselves by, framing my experience a little bit more positive. Okay, I'm caffeinated, I feel anxious, but you know what? I can use this productively, or maybe, oh, this is a good time to learn about how anxieties manifest and how I behave when I feel anxious. Okay, so I kind of create some positive thoughts and I help myself see the situation in a bit more better light. The third option that we can have is the option of concentration. So something unpleasant is happening, I feel anxious, I'm going to concentrate on something neutral to kind of help me take my mind and not let my mind spin too much in these anxious thoughts. So for example, I could focus on my breathing, I could focus on the breath at the nose, and that would automatically calm me down already because I already have a practice of concentration, and I can let that thing be in the background and sort of run its course. Other ways of doing concentration meditation, which are popular, is also kind of repeating mantras or visualizing something, these kind of, or maybe listening to some music and focusing on that, these kinds of more soothing practices. Then fourthly, we have what is the kind of mindfulness path, of the Vipassana path, is where we try to be with that thing just fully. So in the case of the anxiety from this morning, I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes and really just be with this feeling of anxiety, and I'm kind of directly facing it. And this is kind of the most conducive to a long-term freedom from that, because the more I actually investigate and look at this anxiety, the more my brain starts to learn how not to suffer from it, how not to push it away, how not to crave a different state. And I'm just learning how to be okay with anxiety as an emotion itself. And the same thing applies to everything else, to anger, to irritation, to anything which you might otherwise suffer from. And so this is also one of the options we have. this option of mindfulness of Vipassana also goes kind of directly to the root of our suffering, or why we feel unhappy about something, because we directly work on our aversion towards things. The kind of first three are a bit more distraction or distraction way, because we're kind of refocusing on something else, which helps the kind of superficial level of the emotion or the thing that bothers us to release, but the deep level of us not liking that thing still stays there. And the last option, the fifth option, is kind of doing some loving kindness practice. This is a little bit of a combination of kind of positive thinking and concentration practice, where we, send ourselves some love, maybe if we're irritated at someone, we send them love, we try to understand them, doing loving kindness practice. And this can also give some immediate soothing relief effect, but also doesn't really go towards the deepest root level of that suffering, but can be a very helpful thing, especially when we are very overwhelmed by something. I know I had one retreat where I was super duper overwhelmed by pain that was caused by rashes on my skin that were developing because I used to have eczema, and from the stress I had a lot of pain and itchiness and rashiness, and I was trying to practice mindfulness on this, trying to practice mindfulness on my aversion, on my irritation, on a lot of self-hatred that was coming up, but it was just too much. It was too overwhelming. And in that case, I really just, hugged myself and said some affirmations, some loving kindness. Raimar, you're doing a great job. You're okay, etc. And that helped soothe it, which is also fine. So we have many options for dealing with our difficulties, and it's perfectly valid to use all of these things. Just being aware of how we are using them and the level of depth that they go to. So walking away, positive thinking helps, but doesn't really go to the root. And mindfulness, if we can apply it properly, really helps to deal with our suffering at a very direct, deep level. Yes. Okay. So our mind tends to, as I say over and over again, it tends to push things away. It tends to react. It tends to grasp after what we want. It tends to completely reject and be averse to what we don't want. And a little secret trick that you can do every time you feel, oh, I really want something, or I feel like I really don't want this thing right here or something, and you feel kind of a struggle towards experience, a fighting towards experience. Little trick that you can do is just dial it down. So these kind of the radio dial or volume dial on something. Nowadays we don't really have that anymore because we just have the buttons, but just dial down the intensity of how much you want something, dial down the intensity of how much you're pushing away something. If you really want to have a nice holiday or something, you can really be, I want that so much, or you can, that would be a nice thing to have. And it makes a difference to how you feel. And same thing with when you don't want something. That's a little trick that you can use. Another little trick that you can use in the present moment is really believing that this very moment is the most excellent moment in your life. This very moment is really the only moment that you know is real. Everything else is a figment of your imagination, the past, the future. And things might not turn out how you imagine, but if you really make yourself believe that this very moment is excellent, and if you train this habit, things are excellent, things are perfect, and this will make things a lot easier and a lot more happiness. And okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about this idea of meditating kind of formally versus informally. So formal meditation would be meditating every morning, doing your 30 minutes or 1 hour sitting meditation or walking meditation, and going on more intensive periods of meditation. So if maybe you go on a 10-day Vipassana retreat, maybe you do a course like this where you're doing 2 hours a day and kind of making meditation the priority of your life for a certain time. So in this format of meditation, we can go deeper. We can go into the more subtle realms of our experience. We can see much more deeper into, because as we kind of slow down, as we sit in stillness, things simplify a bit, and we can see more clearly how we react, how we create suffering, how we push things away. And so this is a very important dimension to develop yourself on. Oh, there's someone's coming. Yeah. So the first dimension is to go deeper, and this is very, very useful. When you go deeper, you start to learn more how to apply mindfulness. You learn how mindfulness works. You learn when mindfulness doesn't work because you're applying it wrongly, and you can also learn a lot about your very deep aspects of your personality, of your subconscious, and you learn how to kind of dissolve reality, how to be in states of amazing freedom, and etc. So that's one axis of development that you can do, and it's a very important axis of development. The other axis of development, which is equally as important, is the breath. So allowing mindfulness to apply broader and broader to your everyday life. So what this means is bringing mindfulness, or bringing this type of awareness that you're cultivating on the cushion, into each moment of your waking life. So into when you're eating, into when you're talking to people, when you're working, when you're exercising, when you're playing music, when you're just hanging out, when you're playing on your phone, when you're watching TV, when you're anything. When you're learning, when you're listening to a lecture. So when we start to apply mindfulness broader and broader, and not just on the cushion or on retreat, we start to really learn about ourselves also as a person in daily life. And we, with kind of mindful awareness of our thoughts and our body, we can start to see ourselves in all these different situations, see how we tend to react, see what comes up for us. And through that, we learn to understand, and we learn to make better choices. We're kind of collecting accurate information to help us make better decisions, to be happier. So that's the kind of second axis of development that you can improve in. And it's important to train both of these things, because if we just, and there's a lot of people I've met, meditators who do this, they tend to just go into the deeper thing, and they go on more and more retreats, doing more and more hours of sitting, but they don't try to bring it into their daily life. And so the insights they have can't really translate to their personality or their psychology, and they know a lot of things about how reality can be dissolved, but then they still go and indulge and cause themselves suffering. The other thing is, if you just tend to stay on a very superficial level of mindfulness, it does help. You feel a bit more peaceful. You can be a bit more present with your family, with your friends, etc. But it stays at that level. So we also need to start to go deeper and to investigate more deeper and understand more in order to bring it into our daily life. So it's important to have both of these. And most often when people don't find the benefits of mindfulness so much, as they are just tending to focus on one of these axes. Yeah. So techniques, what is the techniques that we can use for this? So the first one, the daily practice. The daily practice is the most important thing out of everything that you do that has an impact on realizing the benefits of mindfulness. The daily practice, doing maybe, I would say 30 minutes minimum to really feel the benefits. If you're just doing 10 minutes or something, you will calm down a little bit, but you won't really gain momentum in the practice, and you won't it will just kind of tucker along. So I would say 30 minutes is a minimum. Better 1 hour. The more you do, the more you learn, the faster you learn. And the daily practice is a little bit like kind of like sweeping the room. If I kind of clean and tidy up my room every day, I'm going to be much more likely to keep it tidy and clean throughout the day. But if I let the room kind of get dirty and messy and pile up stuff and shit, it's going to be much more likely that throughout the day I'm going to be also lazy and throw stuff around. And it's the same thing with the mind. So if we kind of make it a habit to tidy up the mind every morning, to let things settle down a bit, to see what's there, and to not react, we are just kind of keeping this mind a bit cleaner. And then throughout the day, we'll also be more likely to keep it clean. And in the beginning, it takes some effort to maintain this habit of daily practice and to really do it. But after a while, it becomes second nature. It becomes like brushing your teeth. Now I feel very weird if I don't meditate in the morning, because it's like I don't brush my teeth or something. And in terms of what technique to practice, you can practice either anapanasati or vipassana, body scanning. And I would say in the first kind of year or half year, it doesn't really matter too much. But the most important thing is to really practice one of them. You can also practice combination, for example, 1/3 anapana and then 2/3 vipassana meditation. Using a timer is very important as well. Rather than just sitting down and do it, it's nice to have a set time, so you don't have to think about, oh, when should I stop? And we tend to stop when it gets difficult, but we want to be able to sit for a certain amount of time. So the second group of techniques is more related to your mindfulness and daily life. And here, the key principle is basically to be aware of your body, the body, awareness of your body in all your activities. Is kind of acting as a home base or an anchor that you keep coming back to. So when you're walking, you're paying attention to how your feet move, how your knees move. When you're eating, you pay attention to the mouth, to the hands. When you're in conversation, you can just pay attention to how you're sitting and while still being engaged in the conversation. When you're working, even while you're working, just checking in with your body once in a while. I do this just to kind of come back and not get too lost in the stress or rushing or etc. So kind of is your home base to come back to. And the other thing that you can do is let everything be your practice. So don't fall into the trap that my meditation practice is one thing. My meditation practice is sitting meditation, and when I can walk in nature, and when I'm working or talking to people, that's not my meditation practice. Creating this kind of dualistic idea of meditation, and that is not a good thing to do. Allow your practice to kind of bleed into each part of your life. So, for example, when you're doing a boring piece of work that you hate and you're just trying to rush through it, right now is the perfect time to cultivate equanimity, to cultivate patience. Or when you're stuck in an annoying conversation with someone who you don't really want to listen to, but maybe you have to for some reason. Okay, now my practice is to develop patience, to develop how can I serve this person? How can I help this person? So really there's no aspect of our life which we can't use as a mindfulness training, as a training to cultivate qualities in our life that we want to have. Even when we're in a rush somewhere, we can still kind of move fast and be in a rush. But okay, how can I be in a rush or hurry up while still not suffering, while being with my body and allowing more stress to come up and being okay with that, actually. So really, there's no part of life which can't be the practice. And I'm going to draw a little something. The other thing that you want to do is you want to have more and more moments of your day where you're just being a little bit mindful. So when you are not practicing mindfulness throughout your day, we tend to move, or our moods, our emotions, our state of mind tends to move in will to what's happening. We feel elated and we feel annoyed, something happens, and we kind of jump around. And maybe we have some practices which help us balance, like yoga, etc. Can you see the line, by the way? No. That one better. Okay. So we jump all over the place. If we have a daily practice, it's already good because we're starting off a day with some peace, some calm, and then the rest of our day, maybe we can still get affected, but it tends to be, and then maybe we finish the day with a few more minutes of meditation. It tends to be more even. We tend to stay more in our center. Something even better that you can do is, have your practice in the morning and then kind of like periodically dot your day with moments of mindfulness. And that way you get far off the center, you just come back to that. And so you never stray too far off your center. You're staying grounded in your body, staying grounded in reality, staying grounded in being present. Illustration. Okay, how much time do we have left? Okay, one more time. That one. That's one. Didn't realize that was on screen share. Okay. So the last thing that I want to mention, maybe last two things, is when we're practicing to hold space for our own emotions, to hold space for ourselves, to hold space for whatever it is we're experiencing, naturally, we also become better at holding space for others. So usually when we practice mindfulness, we become better and better at being okay with more and more intense emotional states for ourselves, and we know what we need in that moment. And so that directly translates when you're listening when you're listening to someone and being there for them, and they're complaining about something or irritated or sad or whatever, and you can also hold space for that person much more easily, because firstly, you don't get triggered by that yourself, even if they are blaming you. I've had many situations of people, maybe a girlfriend who's kind of upset and blaming me for something, and I feel that coming up, I want to blame back or defend myself, etc. But through the practice of mindfulness, just being with that, watching it arise, watching it pass away, I can stay in that kind of neutral place, and then actually do what is the wisest thing to do, rather than do what the reaction is telling me to do, and kind of create this harmony. So we can really act with more wisdom, and we can act with more kindness from that place of wisdom. Okay. Then the kind of progression that we can actually, you know what? Let's do a little bit of a review first. So close down the eyes and come back to taking refuge inside your body that is always here. The feet, and sitting on the chair or cushion. So today we learned a lot about how to integrate mindfulness Mindfulness helps us gain experience, helps us see the good, the bad, helps us see suffering and happiness, and realizing that we have choices. Certain choices lead to more suffering, certain choices lead to more happiness. And happiness, which we derive from wisdom, from understanding more clearly how we function, is a more long-term type of happiness, kind of freedom to be happy regardless of the circumstance. And we always have several options in each situation where we feel maybe triggered or emotional or unpleasant. Walking away, reframing it positively, concentrating on something else like our breath, the deepest level of mindfulness, or doing loving kindness practice. And the little tip is just to dial down the intensity of what it is we're experiencing. And we need to develop both the depth of our practice, which we do through the daily practice, through our formal sitting, maybe having some more intensive periods of practice, and the breadth of our practice, how broadly we can apply that, how quickly we can switch into mindfulness or switch on mindfulness, which helps us see ourselves more across any situation. And lastly, we can also learn to hold space for our own emotions, and through that be better at holding space for other people's emotions and understand people more. By understanding ourselves more, because we are, as people and our mind work quite similarly actually, even though we have our personalities, etc., we automatically start to understand others more and understand what is needed. Okay. So the last thing that I wanted to quickly talk about is this course is donation based. So there's this idea of dana in Buddhism, which basically means generosity, and yeah, this course is kind of shared freely to everyone. You can register for free, and this is so that everyone has access to it, the people who can't pay, so that people can try it out. And there was 400 people who registered for this course. Now we are not so many anymore, but that's okay. The people who benefit stayed. But yeah, through this, the Dhamma is kept kind of freely accessible, and it's kept accessible. And traditionally, it's always been like that. And the monasteries always give it out for free and then get supported by the lay people. And through that, also the teachings rely more on the generosity and goodwill of people, and the generosity and goodwill of the teacher. So it doesn't become an exchange, but it becomes a giving selflessly, a giving without expectations, and a kind of paying it forward. So if you do feel like donating, I would super appreciate that. And I invite you to kind of think of your donation not as I'm paying for this as a service, but think of your donation as I am paying for someone else in the future to do the course. So someone else from the past course has donated money so that you could take this course for free. And you are, through your donation, giving the opportunity for someone else in the future to do this. So I invite you to kind of take that mindset. The donations are used for the operating costs, for paying for the technology licenses, for supporting me and for supporting my continued learning into this. And right now I'm also staying at a local monastery in Thailand, which has a kids shelter. So some of the donation will also go towards supporting my teacher here and his project with the kids shelter. So yeah, just to put that there. The link is in the bottom of the emails, and I'll send it also tonight. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, even if you don't donate. I really appreciate that you do this for yourself, and that you maybe can bring this towards the people around you, and just by being more peaceful, more there for people. Yeah. So, okay, now there is a little bit of time, not too much, for any questions that you might want to ask, or anything. Tomorrow we have one more guided meditation, one more group meditation, where we also will do some loving kindness practice, which is kind of a nice way to end retreats, always to dedicate our time, dedicate our efforts towards helping other beings. So yeah, it's always a beautiful meditation, so you can show up for that. But yeah, if there's any more questions about how to integrate a practice, what to practice, how much to practice, how it works, feel free to go ahead. Namaste. In Buddhism, the equivalent would be like sadhu. We say sadhu, which means like good or well spoken or well said. Or sadhu, sadhu. When we feel something we need to sit with, do we stop and feel it? That's a good question. So in your daily life, when there's something, I feel anxious or disturbed or something, we need to kind of stop everything, drop everything, and sit down. We can do that if we want to, if we have the time, if we have the space, and we can really stop and sit down with it. And I mean, that's the ideal, but often we don't have the time. We know we are at work, we are out and about, we don't really have the time, and it's enough just to have a few moments of awareness of the body, of checking in. Just those few moments is already putting a little bit of a break on that process. It's already a few moments of kind of not continuing to press the gas pedal, but going off the gas pedal and pressing the brake a little bit. So yeah, even a few moments is great if you can do. Doesn't always have to maybe sit down for 15 minutes. Hi. Sijal, what do you mean? You're asking about we haven't done, or you haven't done, or we haven't done a proper body scan. Okay. Dilip asking, is loving kindness a result or outcome of the prior 4 activities done on a daily basis that was shown today in the slides, walk away, processing, and mindfulness? No. Loving kindness can definitely be something that we actively do. So loving kindness is a practice we'll do tomorrow, where we kind of actively focusing, generating feelings of love, of goodwill, of sympathetic joy, of compassion, by, for example, thinking about people we love, and we get this warm feeling. And so it's a specific practice that we can do. Okay. So I will finish the session. If anyone wants to stay back and talk about the meditation practice, I'll be around for a few minutes. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining, Sadhu. And yeah, may you have a good last few meditations. Thank you.